Good evening. Let your body soften into wherever you are resting. Let your shoulders drop a little. Let your jaw unclench. You do not need to hold anything right now. You made it to the end of another day. That is real. That counts for something, even if the day was ordinary. Especially if the day was ordinary. Tonight, we are going to think together about one quiet idea. A word that most people spend their whole lives chasing, but almost no one ever actually defines. A word that is both a destination and a feeling. A word that, once you understand it honestly, changes something fundamental about how you relate to money and to your own life. That word is enough. Not too much, not too little, enough. Let your eyes close if they want to. There is nothing to see, only to hear, only to rest and drift a little, and let these ideas settle somewhere soft inside you. We are in no hurry. There is nowhere to be. The night is long, and we will go slowly. Think back to the last time you really wanted something. Not needed in the survival sense. Wanted. Genuinely, quietly, persistently wanted. Maybe it was a larger home, a better paying job, a higher number sitting in your savings account, a figure on a screen that would finally make you feel like you were doing well enough, building fast enough, keeping up. And imagine you got it. You moved into the bigger place. You received the raise. The balance hit the number you had fixed in your mind. And for a moment, there was real relief. A kind of exhale that you had been waiting a long time to take. But the exhale was shorter than you expected. Within weeks, sometimes within days, the horizon had moved again. The bigger home felt ordinary now, because it was now simply your home. The salary felt inadequate against the new context you were living in. A different number appeared further out, and the wanting started again, almost before you had finished celebrating the last thing. This is not a flaw in your character. This is not a sign that something is broken inside you. This is one of the oldest, most deeply wired parts of what it means to be human. We are built to want more. For most of the history of our species, that drive was what kept us alive. More food stored for the winter, more shelter against the cold, more safety than yesterday. The ones who were easily satisfied with what they had did not fare, as well as the ones who were always looking a little further, reaching a little more. So that restlessness you carry, that quiet nagging that tells you what you have is almost enough, but not quite. It is ancient. It is not yours alone. It belongs to the whole long story of human survival. But here is the thing. We are no longer living that story. Most of us live in a world where the old dangers are not what keeps us up at night. We are not afraid of the winter in the way our ancestors were. The restlessness has not gone away, but the thing it was designed to protect us from is mostly gone. And yet the engine keeps running. It keeps reaching, keeps wanting, keeps telling us that just a little more would finally be enough. Seeing that engine clearly, understanding what it is and where it came from, is the beginning of something. A quieter way of living, a more honest one. There is a name for what happens when the goal keeps moving. Psychologists sometimes call it hedonic adaptation. The idea is simple and a little humbling. We adapt very quickly to what we have. What once felt like luxury becomes our baseline. What once felt like more than enough begins to feel ordinary. And ordinary, given enough time, starts to feel like not quite enough. You get the raise. After a few months, it simply feels like your salary. The number that once thrilled you is now just the number. You move into the bigger home. After a year, it is just where you live. You stop noticing the extra room. The kitchen that once felt spacious now feels like it could be just a little more open. You buy the thing you saved up for, the thing you waited for, the thing you allowed yourself as a reward. And within a season, it no longer brings the quiet glow it once promised. It is just a thing now, folded into the ordinary background of your life. This is not a failure of gratitude. It is not ingratitude at all. It is simply how the mind works. It recalibrates. It adjusts. It starts from the new normal and begins reaching again, almost without asking permission. And in many parts of life, this adaptation is genuinely useful. It means we recover from setbacks. It means we can absorb difficulty and return to something close to equilibrium. The same mechanism that makes good things feel ordinary also makes terrible things feel, eventually, survivable. But in the context of money, in the context of how we plan a financial life over decades, it can become something closer to a trap. A treadmill, if you like. You run and run. The feet feeling you are chasing stays just ahead, just out of reach. You never quite arrive. And because you never arrive, you never really rest. The troubling thing is that the treadmill does not announce itself. It does not feel like a treadmill from the inside. From the inside, it feels like motivation. It feels like sensible planning for a better future. It feels like ambition, which we are generally taught to admire. And sometimes it is exactly those things. But sometimes, and this is what we are sitting with tonight, slowly and without judgment, sometimes what looks like ambition is simply an inability to land, an inability to pause, look around honestly, and say, "This is where I wanted to be. I am here. This is enough." So, what does enough actually mean? The first thing to understand is that it is not a number. People spend years, sometimes whole careers, searching for the number, the salary that will finally feel secure, the savings balance that will finally bring peace, the investment portfolio that will finally allow them to exhale fully and stop worrying. But the number on its own cannot do any of those things, because numbers are not experienced in isolation. They are always measured against something, against what you thought you needed, against what the people around you seem to have, against the version of yourself from 5 years ago, and what that person imagined the future would look like. And all of those measuring sticks move all the time. So enough is not a number. Enough is a relationship. A relationship between what you have and what you genuinely need to live a life that feels quietly full. Not full of things, full of something else, full of time that belongs to you, full of choices you actually have the power to make, full of the ability to say no to things that drain you and yes to things that restore you. That is what enough looks like from the inside. It does not look like a figure posted on a financial forum. It does not look like a trophy. It looks more like an ordinary Tuesday where nothing is wrong, where you are not afraid, where the bills are paid and there is food, and you can take a slow walk and sit with someone you care about without the background hum of financial dread. Those ordinary Tuesdays, strung quietly together into a life, are the substance. They are not the reward at the end. They are the thing itself. Enough is not exciting. It does not make for a compelling story at a dinner party. Enough is quiet. quiet when you have spent years running toward noise is among the most valuable things in the world. There is a phrase that has been passed down for generations. Comparison is the thief of joy. It is one of those phrases that gets repeated so often it starts to feel like wallpaper. You have heard it. You have nodded at it. And then you have gone back to comparing anyway. But sit with it tonight for a moment, as if you are hearing it for the first time. Because it is exactly right. You wake up in the morning and you feel all right. You make your coffee or your tea or whatever it is. The light comes through the window at a particular angle. There is nothing wrong. You are, in this ordinary moment, genuinely fine. And then something shifts. Maybe you look at your phone. Maybe someone at work mentions, casually and without intending any harm, the holiday they just booked, or the apartment they just moved into, or the investment that has been doing very well lately. Maybe you visit a friend and notice something in their home that you do not have in yours. And suddenly the coffee is still there. The light is the same. Nothing in your actual life has changed at all, but what you have feels different, smaller, less than it was 10 minutes ago. That is comparison working exactly as it always does. It does not steal your things. It steals your sense of them. It takes the same life you were inhabiting a moment before and makes it feel insufficient, simply by placing something else next to it. And here is what makes this worth understanding carefully. The comparison is almost never accurate. What you are doing in those moments is comparing your inside to someone else's outside. You are comparing the full, complex, sometimes painful reality of your life, the debts you are managing, the fears you carry quietly, the sacrifices you have made that no one sees, to the surface of another person's life. The presented version, the part they chose to let you see. You do not see what they carry. You do not see the mortgage that stretches too thin at the end of each month. You do not see the relationship under quiet pressure. You do not see the work that costs them more than it looks like from the outside. You do not see the long hours behind the holiday photograph or the anxious nights behind the confident face. You see the surface, and you measure your whole interior life against that surface. This is not wisdom, but it is deeply human, and it happens so automatically, so quietly, that most people never notice it is happening until the joy has already been taken. There is an old kind of story that has been told in many ways across many cultures. A person has what they need: a home, work enough, and for a time they are content with it. Then something changes, not in their life, in their awareness of someone else's life. The neighbor builds a new addition on their house, or a colleague at the same level receives a promotion, or a friend mentions, without any intent to wound, a number that is larger than yours. And suddenly, the thing that was enough is no longer enough. Not because anything changed, because the measure changed. The person begins to push. They work longer hours. They take on more debt to reach the next level. They sacrifice the quiet evenings that used to be easy and free. They compromise the ordinary contentment they already had in pursuit of a larger version of it. And some years later, they may have more by some measures. But the neighbor has also continued. The colleague has also advanced. The friend's number has also grown. The comparison is the same. The feeling of not quite enough is the same. The measure is always relative. The measure is always someone else. And someone else, somewhere, will always have a fuller barn. The question is not how full the barn is. The question is whether you can look at your barn and feel, quietly and honestly, that it is enough for the life you are actually living. And that question cannot be answered by looking next door. It can only be answered from the inside, from a place of genuine honesty about what you actually need, what actually matters to you, and what kind of life you are actually trying to live. That is a harder question than it sounds, but it is the only one worth asking. So how do you find it, your own enough? Not the number that sounds respectable out loud, not the figure that would satisfy someone else's idea of success, not the threshold that would mean you had won some invisible competition that no one agreed to enter, and no one will ever judge. Your actual enough, the amount that would allow you to live the life you genuinely want, in a way that feels genuinely full. This is something worth thinking about slowly and honestly. Start with the most truthful version of your actual needs, not the minimum survival version. There is no need to be harsh with yourself, but the honest minimum for comfort and safety. place to sleep that is warm and feels like home, food that is nourishing and regular, clothes for the seasons, some ability to move through the world, a way to rest, and a way to connect with the people who matter to you. When you list these things plainly, most of them are achievable on far less than people typically assume. Now think about the life you actually want, not the life you have been told you should want, not the life suggested by everything you have ever seen advertised or posted or shown to you as aspirational. The life that, when you are quiet and honest, genuinely appeals to you. Maybe it involves some travel occasionally. Maybe it involves particular work that feels meaningful. Maybe what you actually want, more than almost anything else, is time. Open, unscheduled time. Time to think or walk or read or sit with someone you love without checking anything. Maybe the life you actually want is simpler than the life you have been running toward. And now think about the gap. The honest gap, measured in real terms, between what you have right now and what you actually need for that life. Not the life imposed from outside, yours. That gap, when measured honestly, is almost always smaller than the one people have been running to close. Because most of us are running toward a version of enough that was assembled for us by things outside ourselves, by advertising, which needs us to feel inadequate, by social comparison, which is never accurate, by vague cultural pressure that says more is always better without ever explaining better for what. When you anchor your enough to what you genuinely need and what genuinely brings you peace, something changes. It stops moving, and arriving at it begins to feel like actually arriving somewhere, not like the endless run, like a real destination that you can rest at and then choose freely where to go next. There is a way of thinking about money that most people are never taught. From the time we are young, most of us absorb, not always through words, but through everything we see and hear around us, the idea that money is a score, that more money equals more worth, that accumulation is the goal, and the goal is always, always to accumulate more. But there is a quieter and more useful way to think about it. Money at its most essential is not a score. It is stored freedom. When you save, you are not simply storing numbers in an account somewhere. You are storing future choices, future options, future ability to say yes to things that matter and no to things that do not. Consider what that actually means in a real life. The person who has saved carefully and consistently over years may not look wealthy in the way magazines use that word. They do not have a figure that would impress anyone at a cocktail party. But they are free in ways that matter enormously. They can leave a job that is making them miserable because they have a cushion to land on. They can care for a family member without financial panic running underneath everything. They can choose where to live based on what they actually want rather than pure financial necessity. They can say no to extra work that exhausts them. They can take a month of rest when their body asks for it because they built that option in. These are not glamorous freedoms. They are quiet ones. You cannot photograph the freedom to quit a draining job. You cannot post the ability to take a month off. It does not look like anything from the outside. But it is real, and it compounds over time, the way all good things quietly compound. And here is the paradox that is worth sitting with. The person pursuing more and more, always accumulating, always running toward the next figure. That person often sacrifices these very freedoms in the process. They work the long hours now, the compressed years, in order to eventually arrive at a future where they will finally be free. But the freedom keeps receding because the number keeps moving, because enough never quite arrives. Meanwhile, the person who identifies a genuine enough, who looks honestly at what they have and says, "This is sufficient for the life I actually want." That person may have found a kind of freedom already. Not someday. Now. In the present, which is the only place anyone has ever actually lived. That is a different relationship with money. It is quieter. It is less visible from the outside, but it is more honest and more free. Let your breathing slow a little now. We are past the middle of our time together. The room is dark. The rest of the world has gone quiet. Let yourself settle just a little more. Think about this for a moment, gently. If you were to write down, honestly and simply, what a genuinely good day looks like for you, not a perfect day, not a remarkable one, a good, ordinary, satisfying day, what would be on that list? For most people, when they actually slow down enough to consider this, the list is not particularly expensive. A meal that was good and unhurried, some time outside, work that felt, even in a small way, meaningful or useful. A conversation that felt real, where something was actually exchanged. A moment of quiet, some laughter if it comes easily, enough rest to feel human. These things are not free. Everything in a life has some cost, but they are far less expensive than the life we often spend decades building in pursuit of them. There is a certain kind of sadness in spending 30 years in compressed, exhausting effort in order to eventually arrive at the kind of ordinary Tuesday you could have been living all along. This is not an argument for ignoring the future. The future is real, and it deserves real preparation. Saving matters. Building something over time matters. Protecting yourself against the unexpected matters. But it is a gentle invitation to look at the ordinary days, the ones that are happening right now, tonight, in this particular life, as the actual substance of everything, not the reward waiting at some distant finish line, the thing itself. And when you see it that way, the math changes. You need enough to make those good ordinary days possible. Not a fortune, just enough. And enough measured that honestly is often much closer than the chase would have you believe. There is a small practice that costs nothing at all. At some moment in an ordinary day, not a special day, not a milestone day, just a regular one, you stop for a moment. Not long, just a breath or two. You look at what you have, not in a spreadsheet sense, in the real sense, the room you are in, the people who are somewhere nearby, the things that are working, the needs that are being met. And you say quietly to no one in particular, this is enough. Right now, in this moment, this is enough. Not a declaration that you will never want more. Not a resignation. Not the closing of any door. Just a brief arrival. An acknowledgement that what exists right now has value. That the journey so far has covered real ground. That you are somewhere, not nowhere. This practice sounds too small to matter, but the mind, trained gently and consistently over time, begins to respond to it. The permanent forward lean softens just a little. The treadmill slows just a little. The background hum of not quite enough loses a little of its volume. You do not need to stop building. You do not need to stop saving or planning or caring about what comes next. You just need, occasionally, to pause at where you are and let it count. Let yourself have arrived, even temporarily, before continuing. Because the arrivals matter. Without them, the movement has no meaning. Without them, you are simply running, one foot in front of the other, indefinitely, toward a horizon that recedes at the same speed you approach it. With the arrivals, even the brief, quiet, private ones, the movement becomes something else. A journey rather than a race. And a journey has a different quality. A journey has moments of rest, moments of looking around and actually seeing what is there. Moments of quiet recognition that go something like this. This is real. This is something. This, right now, is enough. And then, when you are ready, you continue with a little more peace than you had before, a little more clarity about where you are actually going and why, a little less running and a little more choosing. That is the practice. Simple, private, and quietly powerful over time. You have been listening for a long time. Let whatever you are still holding now begin to soften. Let the thinking ease. You do not need to resolve anything tonight. Tonight, we turned over one idea together, the idea of enough. We looked at the ancient restlessness that keeps us reaching. We looked at the treadmill that disguises itself as ambition. We looked at comparison and what it actually takes from us, and why the measurement we use is almost never our own. We thought about what freedom actually looks like. Not the freedom promised by a large number on a screen, but the real, daily, ordinary freedom to choose how you spend your time and energy. The freedom that comes not from having everything, but from having enough. And we thought about how to find your own enough, the version anchored to what you genuinely need, to what genuinely brings you peace, to the life that, when you are quiet and honest, you actually want to live. That enough does not move the way the chased number moves. It stays where you put it. And arriving at it, when you arrive, feels like something real. You do not need to do anything with any of this tonight. You do not need to recalculate or replan or make any decision at all. Ideas like these work slowly. They settle in somewhere over days and weeks and quiet moments. And then one day something small shifts, and you notice the shift, and you understand why. For now, there is only the night, the room, the weight of the pillow, the slow rise rise and fall of breathing. You are enough, exactly as you are, with exactly what you have built so far. You are enough. Let your body rest now. Let the thoughts go quiet, one by one, like lights being turned off in a house at the end of the evening. Each room going dark, slowly, until the whole house is still. You have done enough today. Sleep well